I want to thank Frederico Quintana for presenting with us. Um, he is in Italy at the moment, and he was gracious enough to meet me and do this presentation. So, with that, Frederico, I give you the stage. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, first of all, Frank, for this opportunity. I'm honored to be among many colleagues. I've seen many of the presentations, so some good friends and colleagues on the work of Ukraine. Um, uh, so please tell me, Frank, how should I start,
Yeah.
actually?
So let's start at the beginning. Like, when did you get there? How many times have you been back? Sort of just give us an overview as you go through the slides. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna this is my web page, and it's just an introductory slideshow on it. Then I'll start with the web page because it has a little bit of a resume of as well as I can do for what I have been doing in the war, at least the first part. And yes, I started I am independent, first of all, as independent freelance photojournalist, but I collaborate with a French agency called CIPA Press
Okay.
for many years. For actually 20, 30 years. I used to specialize in South America a long time ago. And so I have a deep connection with them. When the war in Ukraine was about to start, um, possibly because of my generation, it really, really had an impact on me. Um, it scared me, the mobilization of the 200,000 approximately troops from Russia towards Ukraine. And I immediately thought that it was going to be a turning point in history. I thought it was, I put in perspective what I had seen in my life, and I thought it was just of tremendous importance. I cannot base this from particular knowledge, but it was really a gut feeling. In that moment in the beginning of the war, before the beginning of the war, nobody really believed that it was going to happen. Maybe not even Ukrainians. I did believe it was going to happen. So I managed to leave from Italy to Ukraine 3 or 4 days before it actually started. I arrived in Kiev on February 21st, and so I had a few days there before it actually started. And then it started, and I really didn't know what to expect. It was very loose, very unpredictable. We really feared nuclear attacks or shellings. There's a lot of basement activity going on, and it was a discovery experience. It was hard to work as a journalist. It was hard to get accreditation. We had saboteurs in Kiev, sabotage operations. There was a lot of distrust. You couldn't. We had full curfew. So it was very difficult in the beginning. I got arrested several times on the street by Ukrainians at Kalashnikov point. And as a matter of fact, I was going around with a press sign on my back because I actually thought that I could get shot at certain points.
Mm.
So then evidently I got stuck because you can go anywhere for the first almost 2 months of Ukraine. Well, after a little bit of time, there was the way out because the southern route away from Ukraine was always open. What happened in that part of the war was that Russia tried to make a siege on Kiev. I called it like that for a long time, but you cannot really call it like that because they didn't manage to close the circle. But they did attempt a siege, and that's how the four major cities under attack, which surround the capital, which are Irpin, Bucha, Borodyanka, and Chernihiv, actually stopped the Russian invasion attempt at about 30 or 40 kilometers from the capital. And so this was it took about a month to do this. And uh, all these cities became the major attraction from all media.
And are you traveling by yourself at this time, Federico?
Yes, I did. I traveled at first. I caught actually the very, very last plane from Italy. As a matter of fact, I live in northern Italy in Trieste, and I had an airplane with Lufthansa from Venice, which is an hour away from me. And at the airport, at the check-in, they canceled my flight. That's already a good story, actually. I was there with my car, and I had fortunately done the tickets with an agency, with a travel agency which has worked with me in the past. And I called them and I said, they canceled my trip. What can I do? I really need to go to Ukraine. And he said, okay, let me call you back in 5 minutes. And he told me there is a Ukrainian flight, a charter flight from Milan leaving at 1 o'clock. And that's the very last flight from Europe. So I took my car. It was 10 o'clock and it takes 3.5 hours to drive to Milan from Venice. I did it in three to catch the plane. I abandoned my car and jumped on this very old Antonov plane, which had broken seat belts and dirty windows, and wondered if I was ever going to arrive to Ukraine from that day on. And after the first month okay, then it started in Ukraine, and it's
And
very.
move the slides also as you
Oh,
speak.
sure, sure. Let me set this off.
Great.
And um, and so it was very interesting in the beginning. We formed some groups on some apps. First WhatsApp, but then it became a security option. So then Signal, and journalists were present in Ukraine were trying to um, connect with other journalists to help each other. So it was very interesting. I met a lot of journalists and I searched for somebody to work with from Ukraine. There were no fixers at the time yet.
Mm.
And very interesting, I developed very quickly a connection, which is nowadays essential to my work. She's a very good friend. Her name is Lesia Harchenko. And Lesia is a journalist, documentary producer, book writer, translator, film producer. So she's been involved with news in Germany and Ukraine for all her life. So brilliant person. She's philosopher and mathematician by studies. And her husband is a historian, a university teacher, historian. She
Mm.
has two children that are 21 and 17.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And
both are.
so what we're seeing now, the war has started.
This is a little bit of a mix.
Okay.
This from these are prisoners of war.
Okay.
Uh, these are people running away from Kiev in the beginning. This is an operation in Vovchansk a few months ago in the Battle of Vovchansk. This is Irpin. This is in Kiev, uh, one of the many shellings. This is the International Legion. Let me stop it and see if I can back up a little bit. This is the main battle in Bucha.
Mm.
Um, this is a girl that I was part of a mission, which is a project that is still ongoing for me. She was 21 at the time, and she was hit at the legs in Chernihiv. She's a civilian, and she lost one leg on the impact immediately, and the other leg was going to be lost. But in this moment in Chernihiv, the shelling was so strong, there was no access and no humanitarian aid. They were out of electricity and fuel and water.
Mm.
Uh, it's very cold. Also, Chernihiv is in the north, and so she needed immediate care in Kiev. And a Red Cross operation was set up to bring humanitarian aids to the Red Cross station in Chernihiv and to extract this lady so she could be operated in Kiev. Since then, she lost 14 centimeters of bone on the good leg that she had. and she's undergone 34 operations at this time. She exited Ukraine and is in Germany, still recovering. She was 2 years in bed. And so the whole family became very good friends, and I've been
Wow.
documenting the story. So these are some of the stories that some of the ongoing, very deep stories that I have.
Mm.
Uh, this was on the Kherson front line before the liberation. So I was several times on the front line on many of them. It's a crossroad where evacuation of wounded happen after artillery fire. So this is with medics. This was a story about prisoners of war um, that had been under captivity after occupied cities, who suffered torture, psychological and physical. So
Mm.
I followed up a little bit on a story like that. Information is very little. This is in Bucha, the day after the liberation. That's a dead Russian soldier, which was looting the house and was intercepted by Ukrainian fighters. Um,
And by now, Frederico, you're with you have a fixer, and you're sort of organized in what you're doing.
Well, I still work a lot. My work has changed several facets. In the beginning of the war, I did a lot of news. I published work with El País. I joined with El País in Spain. I published a few stories with them, with Le Point from France. But then the interest about news and the work I was doing became a little bit less, and I began to work more independently.
Mm.
Um, and I have been traveling after the first months. I had a friend bring my car to Poland, which I picked up, and so I've been since after the first months of war going back and forth from home to Ukraine. I think now it was the 12th or 13th car trip to Ukraine. I usually stay 2 months in Ukraine at the time and return home for about a month and a half to 2 months. So since the beginning of the war, I've divided my time almost equally between home and
Really?
Ukraine. And I calculate that I have approximately 700 or 800 days between something like that. I never really actually counted,
Mm.
but I was there every season since the beginning. So I have about 700 days of coverage in Ukraine and 12 trips by car, 80,000 kilometers on my car from Ukraine.
Wow. Wow.
It-
And
it-
just, I mean, this is always a question I usually ask at the end. How do you deal with the stress of that, of going into the war zone, coming home, back and forth? How do you manage that for yourself and your own well-being?
it's not very easy. I know it's creating it has some consequences on my being, on my person. Um, I haven't really stopped to ponder too much about it because if I do, I'm
Mm.
afraid I may not be able to continue. So I try not to think about it. I keep myself in mind that this is a work that I want to do all the way to the end, no matter what. It has become the most important thing for me in my life. I want to leave a record of this. I
Wow.
am doing it for the books, for history. Of course, I'm seeking to publish, and I continue to. I'm working as a freelancer, so but in reality, I'm seeking to go deeper, to go into stories that haven't been told. I study what is being told about the war, and I try to see. I have very particular access, thanks to my colleague, who is brilliant and finds very interesting stories of great human depth.
Mm.
Uh, to me, it's highly challenging, but it's also a way to learn. I pose myself always the question of why I do this, and I don't really. The fundamental answer is that it's a learning process for me. So
Mm.
uh, I am a hardcore photographer all my life, and that's what I know how to do best. But I want to understand. I want to learn, and I think Ukraine is just is just an incredibly powerful lesson of humanity that um, it's very difficult that I could learn as much about human nature as in these conditions. So that's what actually keeps me going.
Mm.
Uh, Trying to convey what I feel and what I believe is important because I think this is really, really an important war for the future generations. And so that's my scope. You know, I want to leave a record so that I have a 24-year-old son,
Okay.
and I would like them to be connected with this. But in reality, to be a little bit shorter on your answer, I suffer more when I am home because I find myself out of place. Which is so it takes me usually the first months that I'm home, I have a really hard time. I'm really out of my cup of tea. And then I start to get used to home and I begin to understand that there is another life other than war in Ukraine.
Mm.
And by the time I start to feel better, then I feel the urge to return.
Yeah, and can you, I mean, and you can move the slides along, but a question is, how do you think that, why or how do you think that happened to you? That this has become such a passion?
I have a lot of I find one of the fundamental answers to that is the Ukrainians. It's Ukrainians have a power, a rawness in their soul, a history that is so dramatic, so tragic, so powerful, a genetic background that is really, really interesting and very different than the genetic backgrounds of Russia. Although everybody thinks they're the same, they're not at all. So the Ukrainians actually fascinate me. They have some values that are so strong: the family, the friendship, honor, valor. Uh, Understanding of the value of freedom, um, the capacity to sacrifice themselves willingly, the capacity not to complain, the resilience. It's a word that comes up so often by everybody, anybody that has worked in Ukraine. The resilience of the Ukrainians is something I have never encountered in my life. So this I think this needs to be conveyed to the West, to the US as well, to the modern world, which sits very comfortably and has forgotten in the last 20 or 30 years what the reality of the dangers of human nature are, which is what is happening now. We are very close to risking a World War III. If you could say so, you could actually say that it already started in a way. It just hasn't gone into throwing yet nuclear missiles at each other, but we are back again like 50 years ago. I don't see the difference from what was the Cold War, what was happening under Kennedy or Reagan, for example. And so we've returned, we've regressed, I think, in world societies very comfortably. And I think humanity needs to really make a move forward. Otherwise, I think we're going to lose everything, you
Yeah.
know.
Mm.
So I'm not. I consider myself still a journalist, so I don't really want to make too many opinions about this.
Mm.
But I feel it's necessary, and I think this war is a key point. It's a turning point. It's going to mark a different era, one way or the other, however it ends. Um,
Okay.
Let me continue, please.
Okay.
This is a town that where the front line was went through the middle
Mm.
and was completely destroyed. For example, talking about the resilience. This was published in Republik magazine in Switzerland. They gave me a very extensive photo essay and a very long text by my colleague. And it was a town which had 900 people who had to run away because it was completely The front line was in the middle of the town, and the people are returning, building their houses by their own strength, let's say, on their own, and even in the winter. And this little kid, Nazar, he greeted us in this form, saying, I salute the militaries or the people who come here. I have my own block post. So there was nothing in this town, and he created with two of his friends an actual military block post to see who is entering and exiting the town. But we had not entered the town from his blog post, so he had noticed some activity and had come to check who was visiting his town. And so this town that had 900 people now at this moment, had 90. And of course, conditions were very bad. So these are the kind of stories that I look forward to tell about Ukraine. You know, I did a lot of work with my colleague with psychiatric associations in Ukraine. It's a very big project. I still don't know how to handle. I covered mm, five centers of mental disability, let's say, in Ukraine. And it's a completely different perspective. Three of those were shelled, two of them were under occupation, and there were a lot of heroic actions by the wards and so forth. So that's another. So I have many very complex projects. This is in the liberation of Kherson. I've tried to be in most key moments of the war that were determined, that had a shift in the war. I was present on almost all of them. I couldn't cover Mariupol in the beginning because you couldn't go from Kiev to Mariupol. So some journalists were in Mariupol and some others were in Kiev. So I missed Mariupol, but the rest of what has happened that was key moments of the war, I think I've been to almost all of them, let's say. So I did a lot of work with children. These are refugees from the Bakhmut area, children who lost their parents or became orphans. And it's a mix. A lot of information was withheld here, so for privacy issues. So this is in Kherson during the liberation of Kherson, in the middle of the evening, not night, while Kherson was being liberated, the Russians fled across the Dnipro River like if they had been thieves. And during their escape, they were shelling back into the civilian area.
Mm.
And so while the city was liberated, shells were arriving, and here two people who were walking on the street got killed. Some ladies came to call me and say, "You're a journalist, come and see this." What was important about this image is that the Russians were throwing these grenades, launch grenades with nails inside. I don't know if you heard about these. So they actually put nails in these cluster bombs, and it's devastating. It's really completely forbidden from Geneva Convention and so forth. So this is in the Kherson liberation, the mixture of humanity and war at the same time. And this is part of some of the work I've done in the psychiatric associations. This is evacuations from volunteers in Chasiv Yar during the Battle of Bakhmut. This area was really, really hot. And you had kids like this, the two kids that I cannot show their faces in this image, were going alone as volunteers to Chasiv Yar under really, really, really strong shelling to evacuate people. There's still a lot of volunteers doing this. And these two kids were 19 and 20 doing this. So this is an old lady that could needed to be mobilized in a hurry because she had no way to continue um, on her own in this place.
And Frederico, do you try to maintain contact with these folks as you keep on coming back and forth? Because you're certainly from all the people we've spoken to, the most, I wouldn't say most dedicated because everyone is dedicated, but going back so many times, do you have like relationships with these folks now?
Yes, a lot of them I have some very deep friendships. This is another thing that attracts me to Ukraine. It's the reality, the trueness, and the lack of time that there is in war situation really changes your perspective. So the connection with people is very, very strong, very, very quickly. This is very, very unique from war environments. People either open up completely or close themselves completely. But when they open up, I have made friends, deep friends, which I really keep in contact in less than half hour because there
Yeah,
are no filters, there are no barriers, and there is no time, there is
yeah,
mostly no.
yeah.
So that's also something that attracts me a lot, and in my quest to try to understand how things happen in our humanity, that's one also essential factor, let's say.
Yeah, can you describe that? Because I understand completely that there are no barriers, and I guess that's based on circumstances, but there's a pureness to that, right? I mean, there,
Yeah.
and I don't really know the right word, but can you describe how it is that you're sitting with someone and in a very short time you have a dear acquaintance, a dear friend that you know you will know for the rest of your days?
It's a question of how sensitive you become, I think, in these environments. It's like all your senses of awareness of as well as danger, because you begin to have alarm bells for anything. You recognize sounds, but it opens you to have like um, like a sixth sense that is hard to describe. It's almost chemical, it's a skin thing. It's a question, these things before talking. The speech is secondary. It's enough sometimes a look in the eyes or the way a person handles itself, and you don't really, there's no time to seek for explanation. You just feel it. So you open up a curiosity, a door opens, and then when you talk, it's already done. It's I wouldn't know how to explain it because it's
Yeah,
better than that, let's say.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
This is in Chasivyar. These are people fleeing from Kiev. It was people were cramming in the trains like sardines with fear and despair. This is in Konstantinivka, outside the battles of Bakhmut and Chasivyar. A lot of support in the armed forces from people. They lose the amount of people that die in Ukraine in the war is also something that is very, very difficult to visualize, especially in the news. It's always been very difficult it's been always very difficult to show the magnitude of the war because of its nature of being an artillery war. How do you document how big it is, how much fighting there is, how many people are actually suffering? It's very, very difficult to share this information in a journalistic way. And it's always a big puzzle to me. How, when I come home, that's one of the troubles I have. People ask me, but is it really as bad as they say? And it's like, I find no answers. Her home was occupied by Russians. This is the town I showed you before. And these are weaponry that was left, rocket launchers and so forth. This is Velika that I mentioned before.
So,
Um,
Frederico, when you're working with your colleague, your writer, it must be very important or it must be very intriguing for you that that person has a similar vision in their writing that you do in the way you're speaking, right? I mean, they must be a deep thought type of a
It
person
is
as
it is
well.
exactly that combines the work that we're doing that attracts me. My colleague writes in a literary fashion. She's extremely educated and very well read. And she is around my age, so she was brought up in Soviet Union. Her son, who is a violinist of extremely high level, was being expected in Berlin in the great conservatories at 21, and he abandoned his violin instantly at the beginning of the war to join the war. So she has her 21-year-old son operating drones on the front line of Donbass, and her husband on the front line of Zaporizhia. Her younger son is in Berlin, as he's also a musical genius. He's a composer, 19 years old. So she seeks to talk about Ukrainians, to talk about the drama of the war, and to explore facets that are um, not the ones available in the surface. And she has an incredible talent for that. So I decided to follow her. So in reality, I follow her intuition. She finds the stories. A lot of work I do on my own. So I do work, as you asked me before, also with fixers independently when I go to document battle zones because I still think it's important, and I still want to be present on the fighting ground. I think it is my duty to be in every see every aspect of the war, so that I can understand it better and document what I want to do. And the story of Velika was her idea. From that emerged the story on local farmers, and it was something I didn't know. She has a lot of knowledge about Ukraine. So, for example, local farmers in Ukraine, they don't have any subsidies from government at all. They have zero help. So this is also things that happen in Ukraine that don't exist in our society. Farmers that have a piece of land and depend 100% on the land without any help from anything, from anybody. So these farmers near the battle zones, they can't cultivate their land because they get shells on their land every day. Rockets arrive, fall everywhere on their, and some of these rockets don't explode. So these farmers go out and seek on their own with their tractors the ammunition on their fields so they can do the crops. Um, so it's something that I wouldn't have known if I didn't have somebody that was deeply interested. My fixers in Ukraine will ask me, "What do you want to do?" I will help you do that. They will help me get the paperwork, arrive to the battle zones, re make a story out of something, but they will not discover an interesting thematic. Um, the most interesting work that I have done in Ukraine has been with my colleague. This is all chassis VR and the days around the Battle of Bakhmut, um, for example.
Mm.
Um, so I seek this, and it's very difficult because my colleague also writes in great depth, and so I've been obliged. I changed also a little bit my style of photography. I am a capture photographer. I've always been a capture style photographer, photojournalist. But in the last years and this time of my life, I want to make narrative. And so I've actually gone back to older systems. I'm beginning to photograph. I have been photographing for the last year a lot in medium format, in Hasselblad. I'm embarking again in color a little bit, which was the beginning of the war. I was working in color, but then it just became something I couldn't do. So I switched all my work to black and white. So also I am having a photographical evolution. These are people getting married in the beginning in Kiev, soldiers on the ground because of the shortness of time. It's a little bit, again, what you were asking me before, why people do things quickly. These are two weddings, wonderful people. I'm in touch with them, by the way. They were going to different front lines, and so they decided to quickly marry underground, hiding at the time, and uh, and so you
And
know
they are all still alive? The both boys are alive?
they are both alive. They're both alive. This is another thing that's difficult for me. I remember watching the presentation of Kelly. I've also lost some people in 3 years that I met, that I was friends. So that's maybe the most difficult thing that has happened to me is when it has become personal. So I've made friends that I've lost in Ukraine, and it has come to a great shock when it happened. It's a really, even though I am connected and everything, when it happens to you, it directly puts you in place of the point of view of Ukrainian. This soldier, for example, died. He was not a good friend of mine, but um, we had already a connection. I remember him very well, but I have a lot of closer people who have died. Not a lot, but enough that it caused a lot of turmoil. So I feel very involved. There was a beginning in the beginning of the war. There were Hollywood actors and things like that in support of Ukraine, saying, "I am Ukrainian," and so I feel I am Ukrainian in this sense. It's not very good to say this because it doesn't make me very objective, and I need to maintain objectivity for my work, but I still do believe that they really need all the support that they can get. This is, for example, Irpin in the beginning. Uh, I think everybody saw the images of this. New York Times published it a lot. Civilians running away. The civilians had been stopped at the Russian block post. They broke their windshield, took their phones. They were running away with the cars had flags on their cars. This is on the Irpin Bridge. On this same bridge, which all the cars were abandoned, Russian snipers were shooting on the civilians freely at moments. Um, Cars running away with the white flags, as I mentioned. This is in the center of Irpin. Mortars arriving. This is a kindergarten school. This woman was hiding there but didn't know where to go. As soon as she saw me, she exploded in tears. This is also about the communication. She looked at me in my eyes and she felt comfortable. So she just shared her emotions, but she wouldn't have if she could have very well remained cold and not talked to me. She
In some way, and other journalists like yourself are a savior to these people in the middle of all this is someone from the outside coming in.
Yes, it creates a very deep responsibility for us. Every time I have this happens to me, I feel several things. I feel, first of all, that I am privileged to be in that position, and I am very privileged that people want to share it. And then I feel I really have an obligation to try and say uh, what they feel because it is that they're thanking you for. They're grateful that somebody else notices how terrible this is, how terrible it is what is happening to them. A lot of people feel they're just invaded, and a lot of people will ask you, but why? They will ask us, why do they do this? What do they want? Why do they do this? What did we do to them? And this is a tomb in Irpin because civilians were dying. They didn't know where to bury them. So this is just a it's just a park, and it's just buried in the middle of the park. And again, about the resilience, this is 3 months after the Battle of Irpin. I was back in the summer, and people are walking around in shorts and carrying on no matter what. That's another interesting subject. So these people, Yahine, they were forced into a children's school by Russians who occupied their town. They were forced into a basement for 40 days while the Russians used them as a shield in the kindergarten school. And the day they came out, we were there. They were exchanging medicines, clothes, food, because for 40 days they had been locked on the basement. This girl who was 12 was teaching other children, doing school underground, and here are drawings from other children. She was practicing the national hymn, and teaching others. And so this is the day they came out, for example. And this is the school's main central classroom, let's say, with the Russian maps calculating their siege. You can see here the crosses around the capital. Irpin, Chernihiv, Bucha, that they wanted to. This is the border with Belarus, and they couldn't close this exit here.
And
So they never.
in your career, have you ever taken on a subject or conflict and gotten so immersed in it like you are here?
No, as a matter of fact, I am not a war photographer at all. I did a lot of documentary work. I worked a lot in Central America and South America. I did National Geographic style work, let's say, anthropological, human. I covered a lot of tribes in the Andes, miners. I covered Central America, the conflicts in Chiapas and Mexico, at the time of the great revolutionary Marcos. I was searching for him in the jungles of Guatemala for a time, but not really. I had actually never done a war like this, and especially not this kind of war. But I don't think anybody has done this kind of war. I don't think there has been a war very similar to this one since World War II. It's a different thing. I meet a lot of people who have been in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Libya, and you lose your bearings here because it's a very hard word to understand. It's very, very high risk. At this time, it's incredibly high risk on the front lines because it's a drone war as well. It has become a drone war, and the technology now is highly sophisticated. So you have intelligent drones that just hit you on foot, on car, and they don't make a lot of this distinction
Yeah.
of what journalists, humanitarian aid, and diplomats are prime enemies for Russia. So they will shoot you on sight, and there are a lot of already journalists who have lost their lives in Ukraine. So it's a very, very dangerous and unpredictable environment. The front line is almost 2,000 kilometers long, which is something absurd. The Russians are losing something like 1,500 soldiers a day, approximately. At least that's the number that they say. Ukrainians, it's not clear, but they're losing probably half of that number, which is a lot for Ukraine, a lot, because Ukraine has its best people on the front line, contrary to Russia, and Ukraine has probably less than 30 million people. at this time, while Russia has over 140 million. So it's definitely to their advantage to drag the war in the long run. So it's we're talking about nearly a million of dead people fighting in less than 3 years. It's uh, it's uh, it's just really radical if you think about that.
Yeah.
So this is another thing. So
Hmm.
please ask me more, Frank, and then I will
Yeah,
show you a
no,
little bit.
it's listening to you is and seeing these devastated areas, and knowing that this is under your skin is is very humbling to, and now to listen to your words. Uh, so when do you plan on going back now?
Well, I am now with a project that is maybe the most important one that I have done that I want to carry out. It's about palliative soldiers who cannot be in hospitals, who are dying as results of very strong brain injuries. And I found a center where I've been accepted, which I am truly honored and touched by this. The people who run this place have opened up completely, and so have not all the patients are dying. There are other patients as well. So I wanted to go back. I've just returned. I came back 3 weeks ago,
Oh,
and I was just about to go back right away. So I was going to leave this week, and actually, when we agreed to make this Zoom, I told you the 25th was really almost my last day because I was planning on leaving on
yeah.
these coming days. But I took a breath and I decided that I wanted to be home. I have a wife and kids, so I need to be a father as well, and the husband. And so I said, okay, I'm going to be here for Christmas. And so going back to Ukraine for 20 days, I almost did it, but it's just too much of a travel. I am also physically tired from the last trip, which was very difficult. And I decided, so I will be going back in January, I think, probably in the early part of January.
So that's the next question. How is your family dealing with this? How does your,
It's very
the
interesting.
normal, the normal boring life of family? How do they deal with, my dad is going, my husband is going, my hero is going, you know, this must be an incredible stress.
Not really.
Oh, okay, good.
It's very interesting. In my background, I studied journalism in America in Arizona at Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. I graduated in journalism with an emphasis in photojournalism, and I was in the States, and I was not married yet, but I married in Las Vegas with my wife, who is Italian, as she stayed with me on my last year in the States before graduation. And when I asked her to marry her, I was studying photojournalism. I went and I had served in the army in Italy. I was in Special Forces Airborne for the purpose of doing war photojournalism in my life. So I started training to do war photojournalism very early, and I studied for it and I prepared for it. And then when it was time to marry, my wife said, "But I won't marry you if you do that job." And so at the time, I was very much in love. And I said, "How about if I do documentary work? Would that work?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "But I will be away from home for a long time." And she said, "That's okay for me, as long as I don't have to think every day that you're going to die." And so I made a little bit of a change in my programs. And we moved to Argentina, and I did work many, many years as a staff photographer for La Nación in Argentina. I did all kinds of work from travel to news to I did everything in those fields. But it was already a couple of years that I was blasé. I felt that I had more capacity, and this desire to do this kind of work was just never left me in more than 20 years. So I became very interested in the crisis in um, oh my, a lack of words in Africa, in
Sudan.
Sudan, when there was the women's revolution who overthrew the government, maybe 5 years ago, just before COVID, I think. So I wanted to do that story. I thought it was really interesting that women were actually moving masses and making changes. So I got very interested in that, but I didn't manage to organize my trips there, the visas, the planes, etc. Then I got very, very interested in the retreat from Afghanistan, from the US, and I failed to be in time on the planes of that. And then came Ukraine, and so I had some time to prepare my family. And my wife was very angry in the beginning because she said to me when I was in Kiev after 3 weeks, I had told her to make things easier. If the shit hits the fan, I'll come home. But then when it did, I didn't. So she said to me, "You lied to me." You know,
Mm.
that was the worst. But then after the second trip, I talked about it with her, and she really told me, I understand, and really, you don't have anything in your life that is more interesting than that, and I understand that. So, you know, just try to keep together and do your job and come back. Don't be stupid. And that's it. We never, this was in the beginning. I'm talking about the first return home.
I am.
So now the only premises that I have at home is we don't talk about it. It's like, so I arrive home and Ukraine is not in the conversation. It's I have to listen to what they have to tell me, and
Yeah, that's
it
fair.
works. It works.
And what does your wife do?
She does administration. Uh, she takes care of the home of my son, who is a big boy, but still needs some looking after.
Yeah.
So she helps her family. She has some things to do with, and she does some business investments, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of banking.
Okay.
Uh, she's
Great.
quite good at it, and nothing amazing, but she
No,
does pretty
all of
good.
that is amazing. Taking care of a family, there's no harder job than that. My God. I know that feeling. Okay.
This is Chernihiv, which is very important to me. Chernihiv marked a really important point. It was four towns that were part of the siege. Irpin, Bucha, that everybody knows, Borodyanka, which is nearby, and Chernihiv. But in the time of Chernihiv, nobody went. So I was the only one that managed to go to Chernihiv because I had a Red Cross opportunity. This is after the
Go back to the previous slide. One more. One more. So yeah, that one. No, the one with the feet. No, the other way. Yeah,
okay.
that's very sad.
This is at the morgue in Chernihiv. So you have one civilian and one military.
Right,
And the following shot is outside the morgue.
right.
There were so many deaths at this moment that they couldn't cope with it. So they had the woodworkers in the city building coffins. I have another shot of the cemetery somewhere. They were digging trenches. The bulldozers were digging trenches before the corpses arrived because they didn't, it was so fast, the quantity of death, that
Mm.
they didn't even have the time to make the burials. Um, so this was published in El País. It was first page on El País, and then they gave an extensive story about that. So this was a very important moment, and Nastia is the girl who lost her leg, which I will go to visit again. She's in Germany, in Leipzig. I've already went 2 or 3 times to see them. Her father remained in Chernihiv because he's 54 years old, so he couldn't leave because he was under martial law. And finally, 4 months ago, so he hadn't seen his wife and his daughter for the first 2.5 years of war. And finally, they released him for his military duty, and he's now in Germany, and the family is reunited. And Nastia, finally, they found a way after the last 6 operations in Germany. It's very interesting what war wounds do. This is something I've learned in recent times. This is interesting that when you're wounded by shrapnel or other explosive, the wounds don't are different than any other trauma, and they don't cure. Many wounds can remain if you have open wounds from shrapnel, they will not close for several months. And she had a similar problem with that she lost a piece of bone on her leg, and they tried to make that to have the bone grow again, and it never happened. She suffered 6 months of infection in the beginning,
Mm,
and then when the infection finally was under control, it didn't happen. So these are the coffins
yeah.
in Chernihiv outside the morgue, ready for arrival, let's say. And this is in the stadium of Chernihiv. This was for El País. It was a story. They had lost their son. You can see the shelling behind them in the middle of the stadium. They tried to, after the liberation of Chernihiv, the Russians tried again. They backed off. They went back to Belarus, Russia, and then after a few months, they attempted again. So they were trying to enter from this side of the town, which is another town, and they were shelling on the civilian population to open up a pass so that they could invade the city again, and that they never managed that as well. And so in this process, this family lost their 20-year-old son. So it's a
Mm,
very, they were shelling on Chernihiv with these bombs. These are World War II bombs, which are completely forbidden. So this is also a demonstration of how the war unfolds. In this moment, they were dropping this. This is an unexploded avio bomb, and these are avio bombs from World War II, like you used to see over Germany. The airplanes dropping down. This is completely banned because these bombs have no it's uncontrollable, the diffusion of the explosions. So they're completely forbidden from the Geneva Conventions. And okay, this is just classic Russian style of war. And this is part of the liberation in Chernihiv, the days of liberation. And this is the cemetery, but not the shot I mentioned you before. This is an open cemetery. All the cemeteries that have flowers like that, it's always from soldiers. At this time, they didn't have so many flags. Nowadays, they put flag on everything correctly, so you can see the magnitude
yeah.
in the. This is the bridge entering the town of Chernihiv. And the day I exited Chernihiv normally takes 1.5 hour from Kiev. It took us 7 hours to reach it because we had to go around in the fields with the Red Cross convoy at a very big distance. And this bridge was the only way to enter the town. And the day we exited with Nastia wounded with the ambulance, that same day the bridge was shelled. So it completely closed the access, and then nobody went in again. As a matter of fact, some journalists tried to go inside, and a Ukrainian under the bridge, and a Ukrainian journalist got killed in the process.
Mm,
So, so Chernihiv is a very important moment for me. Let's say it marked a very wake-up call on what it was. This is Kherson. I was there for the whole liberation of Kherson, which was also Ukraine used this I think rightly so, as benevolent propaganda. They wanted to show that they had made a gain, that they had made Kherson had been occupied for 6 months or more, and they managed to liberate it. So it was a great victory for Ukraine. Immediately after that, they started talking about the counterattack. Uh, which is another story. And so here it's the days of liberation of Kherson. There was no telephones, no electricity, no water, and people are at the train station with generators, calling, charging their phones, continuing life, you know. So this is also the entrance to Kherson, the joy of the first victory for Ukraine. And but it was a little bit media control because the city was actually liberated. But while they were having the festivities and people were coming out of the basements and the Russians had finally left, but on all the outskirts of the town, they were fighting still very, very strongly and picking up bodies. So I actually didn't cover so much of the festivities in the central area where all the media was, and we went to explore the outskirts, and we found devastating reality there. They were really picking up bodies everywhere, and there were all the leftovers from the Russian troops, which was very, very impressive because it showed a lot of their behavior. It showed their aggression towards civilian, as you can see here. Um, this is leftovers from houses that they had occupied. This is the entrance of the town. This is a town called Oleksandrivka, which is only a few kilometers from Kherson. And this is what was happening in the surroundings. The
So do you
people,
also do you when you do a show, do you sell prints? You know, can people
I haven't yet, and I haven't yet had the time to market any of this, but I would like to, you know, I would like to, I really think I would like to make exhibitions, but I just don't have the energy. All my energy goes into covering the war. I don't have enough energy to even edit my work properly. So I think it doesn't matter at this moment, you know. I think
yeah.
I must set priorities, and I have a very straight line with this. Um, I think the timeliness issue with my work, I have my agency backing me up a lot. So if I have breaking news that I think can be published, I will send them very quickly. If I have good stories that are tight enough that I think they have a potential to publish, I will try. But I am accepting a little bit reluctantly because it's not part of my mythology, of my process. But I am accepting that my work will be more important on a longer time frame. So it's not an easy but acceptance, but I have to believe in that, and it will help do this better. If I get too distracted in trying to, then I will not be able to go as deep as I want. So I still haven't reached the depth that I would like to. So I'm on a quest, let's say.
Yes. Mm.
And okay, here are the nails, you know, from the
Yes.
same color code from before. Um,
Ah.
so I can go a little faster, and I have no idea of our time frame.
No, let's let this body here be the last one. I think that'll be perfect.
I did want to show you a little bit of my most, this is all early work.
Okay.
And I did want to show a little bit of my current work, which is very different and
Yeah,
most,
do that. Great.
and so this is one of the towns of the invasion. Is it showing properly? Okay,
Yes,
we've
it's showing
seen.
beautifully.
So this was Mykolaiv. I spent a full summer there near the Kherson front line. So some also heavy artillery and things underground, front line, zero line, first line, second line, that kind of stuff. The water shortages,
Mm,
main building in Mykolaiv destroyed by avio bombs. And then the Great Battle of Bucha. I'll go through this quickly. I think a lot of people have seen many
yeah.
versions. We had many journalists covering this. So we were all there here. But this is really the day of the liberation and the day of the discovery of the mass graves. And it's still a very early set. This was became the focal point of the news for several months because there were
Yeah.
um, over 100 bodies here who were excavated and denounced as war crimes. And it's still going on. So I think the whole world saw this street where the actual tanks faced each other on a battle that left this behind. You can see the tanks on top of each other. It's just something that was just of an extreme level and courage, to face this attack in this way. So let's see if I can jump. I'll switch if this works. So, for example, um, one of the projects that is very in depth and edited, but maybe a little complex to just understand that really goes with the text, is about a town that is now occupied called New York. So New York, New York is past Toretsk, which is under tremendous fire right now, and it was really on the zero line and almost not accessible for some time. So this is more contemplative work. It's about exploration, but I need to somehow. I don't know if this works very well without being able to read the text, but
Hmm. No,
this
but
film,
your descriptions are wonderful.
this is film. So here there was nobody in the town, so we ended up spending a lot of time in a church, a
Mm.
Baptist church. This town is very interesting because it was founded by Mennonites in the 30s. And it's called New York because Mennonite settlers, they can be no more than 400 of them. And the wife of let's say the chief of the group that was settling in creating this town was from New York. And she missed her hometown a lot. And so her husband said, we'll call this place New York.
And
And so
why is the limit 400?
I don't know. I think there's very small communities, and I think that they need to have one leader in the community. And I think more than 400 is too difficult for them to hold it together.
Okay.
And I think their idea is to take their religion and their way of being and their philosophy in the world. So they separate in groups and go to settle like pioneers to a place.
Ah.
And they're very much for nature, and so they influence this town a lot. But this is very interesting. This is also something Lesia discovered. And she found a descendant from the settlers in northern Germany on the North Sea in a town called Bremen, and who happened to be an archival specialist in an archival museum, I would call it, um, 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 about Soviet history, Ukraine, and Balkanic countries. And so we drove to Bremen to go make an interview with her and follow the story. And then we found descendants there. So some people who remember the Mennonites, because then the Russians came in the town, chased the Mennonites away, secluded them in an area of Zaporizhia, destroyed the town. Yeah, I'm talking in around World War II. And this is wood for the winter. And so and then made Soviet industry about making gunpowder. So some of the older people remember the early parts and the beautiful trees and the gardens and the Mennonites, the beautiful teachings. We tried to make a correlation about this. And of
Mm.
course, there is 16-page text from my colleague, which is absolutely bewildering because it goes all the way to trace German songs from the time. And
Wow.
I do have a 2-minute video, which if I have the opportunity, I would love to show you because it
Yeah,
may be
show
better.
it.
It may be better than this is Maria in Bremen. We became very good friends in the archival center and showing her archives from her father, the photographs from the settlers, the Mennonites, and some objects that she had in the cemetery. So this is more a reflection. While we were there, we got shelled, and so we met some people local that had their house destroyed. It was one of the photos before. So this is more a story about the people who remain in places like that and how it was in Ukraine. And you cannot believe how beautiful this place must have been in the Donbass area is very beautiful. So these are more reflective work. This is a great poet who was in love when he was 8 years old with a little girl, Mennonite German. And when the Russians chased them away, they took her away. And he spent the rest of his life writing poetry and writing letters to her, which he never managed to send her because he doesn't know where she is.
Uh,
So the Mennonites, for example, planted peach trees everywhere on the streets and then trimmed them. And he learned how to do that when he was a little kid. So his life purpose is to continue to trim all the trees of New York, the peach trees and the apple trees, and to write poetry. And here you are in this destroyed town. So these are the archivals in Brennan's, the violin from her father. She grew up in Kazakhstan because her father was evacuated and so forth. So it has a lot of text. Let's say here's a book of poetry and just a different style of. So the main industry in main fabric in New York, and so it's more about the characters and the story
mm,
of New York, Donbass, and the friends we made.
mm.
Yeah. I'll show you, I'll do the video because I would be very happy if I could show that.
Beautiful. Do that.
Let's see, let me see how I shall do that. Let's see if I manage to movies. You seeing my screen?
I am. All good.
Okay, it's in German, and this is we almost didn't do any film, but we filmed just a little bit, and I with a black and white camera, just a little bit Lesia film, and because she has this very high level capacity of video production, which she doesn't do with me, she just edited this as let's see if I can do something with this. And I personally think it's very special. So
Die Stadt New York Nicht die in Manhattan, sondern New York, im Gebiet Donetsk, eine Stadt, die Geburtsstadt meines Vaters ist, bedeutet für mich eine Welt eines deutschen Siedlers, der in Osteuropa geboren ist, in einer Gesellschaft, die sehr westlich war, die voller Kultur, Werte, Traditionen, Prägungen aus Norddeutschland waren. Eine harmonisch funktionierende, fromme, nicht überfromme, voller Leben, ehrlich und europäisch. Mein Lebensfundament war zum Teil dieses imaginäre New York, das ich nie gesehen habe. Und wenn ich heute lese und sehe, dass diese Stadt zum zweiten Mal im Krieg untergeht, denke ich mir, dass sie nicht untergehen darf und dass die Generationen, meine und quasi Enkelgeneration, von den Menschen, die den Zweiten Weltkrieg, Deportation, Verfolgung, Stalins Repressionen erlebt oder nicht erlebt haben und jetzt irgendwo irgendwie als Geister und Seelen uns beobachten, wissen, dass es noch Menschen gibt, die sehr, sehr darauf hoffen, dass diese Stadt auferstehen wird. Zumindest es geht einfach darum, dass die Vergangenheit nicht verschwindet. Dass man die Spuren sieht, was diese Menschen denken. Anders geht die Geschichte nicht.
Very nice. Very powerful. Very powerful. So you could stop sharing for the moment,
Okay.
right? That is all of this, Frederico, is an incredible body of work, my God. And it continues to grow.
And I've only showed you a part, and I'm actually surprised I didn't do too bad, I think. But I thought it was going to be more difficult because there's so much I would like to show, but I could go on until tomorrow, you know.
Yeah, this is you said something early on about being a journalist and being independent and not having a bias, but it's impossible in this situation, isn't it? I mean, because you're seeing all this destruction, you're seeing all this despair, and the way you cover it inside your heart and your soul. It's impossible to not go to one side. It's just, and is that something that is painful for you as being a pure journalist?
Yeah, it was, but I came to terms with it. It was in the beginning, it was. I had a lot of dilemmas. It took me a long time to, no, not such a long time, but it took me a long time to accept that I was completely convinced that what I was saying was right to say without knowing what the other side had to say.
Mm,
In the beginning, I many times thought, but okay, what about these Russian kids that are fighting? It's not their fault. It's they don't know. It's you can't blame everyone. You can blame Putin, but you can't blame everyone. But slowly, I began to see it from the Ukrainian point of view. You always have a choice, and so I accepted that no matter what I would see on the other side, it would be very difficult to convince me differently from what I see. And this is why my work is a little bit straying off from the journalistic side. It's beginning to be a personal statement. It has begun. It
Yeah.
has been a personal statement, but it's less, it has always been a personal statement, let's say, but it wanted to keep very objective. And I'll show you everything I can to tell you all the story in the beginning. Now I am seeking that you pay attention to what I want to say.
Mm.
That's why I'm looking for another stillness in photography, that I want to stop you and ponder and think. And so that's a much deeper mission for me, because I have not necessarily been this kind of photographer in my time. So I feel this responsibility. I think it's time that I say what I feel with my images. And
Yeah.
so it was, I still remain objective. I don't manipulate anything. I won't tell
Yeah.
you anything that's not true, but I will tell, I want to say what I see, and so
And you can't do this for 2.5 years without having a bias. I mean, it would just be impossible to do that, I think. And yeah, no one who's fair and open-minded cannot agree with that. It would just be impossible. It would be sort of like we have this phenomenon of fake news, right? This is real. This is you're living it, you're breathing it, you're smelling it, everything. Yeah. So
so I've accepted it.
yeah, yeah, and well, as you should. So you said that this was going to be hard for you. This could not have been more pleasurable. You did a
It's,
great job.
it's thanks to you, Frank. You gave me peace.
Oh, you did an absolute wonderful job, and I cannot thank you enough for doing it. I mean, this hour and a half went by in a moment. So I tell you, I want you to come back and, show us new work. You always have a platform here to share with us as you progress and as you start to, at some point, I'm sure you're going to want to put together a book. Anything that we could help you promote, you please, reach out to us and I would be, forever grateful and want to be as helpful as we can in promoting, whatever next phase this is for you. Unfortunately, it appears that we're going to be going on with this for a while, right?
Unfortunately, yes, I think so.
And then of course, I mean, as you sit there, you will have to document the rebuild, whatever that is.
I think that will happen too, because I also wonder. I have dedicated so much to Ukraine in the last 3 years that I've lost a little bit of track of what's going to happen afterwards. And in reality, it's actually Lesia who told me, well, but then we will have a lot of work in the
Oh my,
reconstruction. So
yeah,
it's like,
this
oh,
does
yeah.
become a life.
Actually, I look very much forward to that. It will be
Yeah,
some amazing work to be done and not under shelling. And
I
so
mean, it does become a life's work.
I think it does. And
I mean, like
I'm
you,
honored that I can. I feel very privileged that I can do that.
I
It's
mean,
uh, it's the first answer that I give. I think I am very lucky to be able to witness this and and to be accepted. And at the same time, I will pay a price, but I'm glad to pay it. It's worthwhile every second of it. And it's also a great responsibility that I must tell the story of a lot of people.
yeah.
And so I am the one who has to thank you, because it's very difficult to promote this kind of work independently. And this is just a great opportunity, Frank. So
No,
thank you very, very much for this.
but you must hug and kiss your wife because she's allowing you to do this. She is,
Yeah,
she and your children are the heroes. Go, Dad, right? It's
yeah.
without your family behind you, it becomes hollow, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure there are moments where when you are in Ukraine, knowing that they are thinking and behind you, this is must bring you comfort in so many different ways.
it does. It does. And in the end, I know that they're proud, and
Yeah.
that's the highest value that I can receive. They don't say it, but I know I know it is so.
Yeah,
So
that's beautiful. So, as I always do, I give you the last words as we sign off for the day. What can you share with us as we come to the holidays? 2024 comes to an end. Christmas is here. New Year's is coming.
I will wish everybody Merry Christmas ahead of time. It's a little bit early for that. I will say to people who listen to this, if people are listening to us, it's because they're interested both in photography and journalism, and probably maybe also about Ukraine. So I want to say this again. I really believe Ukraine is very important. It's historically a turning point. I have no doubt about that, and it's a chance to make a difference. Hoping that somebody like a president or Trump or somebody else will resolve this. It's not going to be one person who is going to do it. There is no negotiations at all with Russia. There is nothing to negotiate. There is nothing to discuss, and there is nothing that we can offer them. So there must be awareness. It's very, very important that this is a really serious war, that Russia is dedicating their whole economy towards rebuilding massive arsenal of war, and that they will not stop with Ukraine. The countries nearby are very aware of that. So maybe it will take a long time, but the time is to their favor. So everybody that can help in any way, please do. If you have any intention to help Ukraine, do help Ukraine, do support Ukraine. They really deserve it for the good and for the bad. Nobody's perfect. So no country is perfect. Ukraine is a country with a lot of potential, but a lot of openness in the past. So there are different facets of Ukraine. Not every facet is perfect. It's not everybody is an angel, but it's a country that deserves our help and protection from the whole world.
Wow,
So
that is perfect. So I thank you very much. I wish you and your family wonderful holidays, and I will be in touch with you.
many, many thanks, Frank, and the same to you.
Okay. All the best.
All the best.
Bye.